Hi everyone, so Diablo 4 Season 2 is in full swing. I just finished my first 30-hour stream last night, leveling my hardcore seasonal rogue to level 100. That was a lot of fun, and I want to give a bit of my impressions and what I think about this season, because a lot of people always keep asking me. So, personally, I had a blast with this rogue so far. I leveled it up as a Twisting Blades rogue, so I just had updated the guide on max roll as well, and I've been playing basically exactly that setup from start to finish. It has been working like a charm. The total time to level 100 was 20 hours and 35 minutes, all solo. So it is really fast. In fact, it is way faster than I had anticipated. I didn't really do like exact math before that, but I was expecting somewhere around 25 hours, maybe even up to 30 hours to hit level 100, but it turned out to be only 20. So that was definitely really fast. In fact, it's around 4 times faster than on launch. So back when I did the world first, the 100 solo hardcore on June, that was 78 hours. And in season 1, I think I would have been something like close to 40 hours. So that was roughly twice as fast as launch. And now we're twice as fast again, basically, compared to season 1. Leveling up is definitely really quick these days. So that's the bottom line. And I don't think that anyone will really have big trouble getting to level 100 if you invest a lot of time in your characters. Now, for the seasonal content, the Blood Harvest, that is actually really cool stuff. I really like the Blood Harvest. I think this is seasonal content done right. I've been actually leveling with this for a little bit. It's not as effective as Nightmare Dungeon spam, but it seems fairly rewarding. I really like the atmosphere there, the vampire enemies. I like that they added a bunch of like whisper objectives there. And there's also this Blood Harvest event. If you haven't tried that, there's like, lots of loot. Everything goes crazy. Pretty cool stuff. And also like the other endgame activities are just like much more viable now. So again, most people were just leveling up in domain tunnels here for like 1 to 50. I didn't really do that. I was actually also trying to do some vampire stuff. I was trying to get some codex powers unlocked, etc. I only did like maybe an hour of domain tunnels or something just to finish the last few levels all the way to 45 when I went for the capstone dungeon, and that was it. But some people have done a lot more domain tunnels than that, and that seems to be still the fastest way if you only care about XP. But overall, I think there's a much better balance, and you can definitely choose to do other things. Personally, I'm very much looking forward, now that the race is over, to just like do Whispers, do Blood Harvest, do Hell Tides, do some world bosses here and there, and just have some fun with all the different endgame stuff, instead of really try hard rushing just through Nightmare Dungeons. So that's really cool. But yeah, if you want to level fast, domain tunnels and then Nightmare Dungeons is still the way, but it's not necessarily like the only way. So you can definitely do other stuff, and that's really cool about it. I also really like the vampire powers. It turns out that we were bamboozled a bit, and you can only have a total of 20 packs. So for example, in some of the guides you might see maybe some more powers used. We have to adjust that. But overall, I really like how they unlock, and you can upgrade them. Okay, the upgrading interface, let's not talk about that one, because yesterday I just spent like 15 minutes straight just pressing upgrade here because I had like 3,000 blood or something. But outside of that, I think it's cool that you can like swap these around and you can upgrade them, and they feel really impactful. So yeah, just like nice damage or toughness buffs and some procs, etc. So it's kind of cool to play around with them. And it's not really so like set in stone. You can definitely experiment with different options here. This is kind of nice. So overall, I gotta say, I really like Season 2 so far. I'm very excited to play a bunch of different builds. Next up is probably Rain of Arrows. I'm probably going to level a second rogue for that and have some fun with Rain of Arrows. I think that's gonna be cool. So I'm gonna have an update for you on that as well. But when it comes to just the seasonal content, yeah, for me, this is definitely a big win. I think this is a huge upgrade over Season 1. And I mean, anything is an upgrade over Season 1, to be fair. So I don't think that was really hard to achieve, but I think they've done a good job, in my opinion. So I'm quite excited to see how this will shape up in in like a few weeks from now, for example, after I've played a bunch of characters, how excited I will still feel about the seasonal stuff. But I think it's really cool. Maybe this could be something that actually sticks around a little bit in the future of the game, as well as like yet another side activity to do, for example. we'll see. I also have to say that for the itemization changes, I really like those as well. So especially the resistance reworks are quite impactful. You see here now I have a bunch of items that have resistances on them. They are really important, so make sure you get those resistances up when you're higher level. And in general, the difficulty of the game doesn't really seem to have changed very much overall. So throughout my progression, I was actually fine, basically all the way. It was just that there was like some moments when I switched, for example, to Torment difficulty, I was like really low on some resistances, and I was not really paying enough attention to those early enough. And for example, my cold resistance was like 16% or something like that. And I got almost one-tapped by like some trash monster, like one of those drowned dudes with a big wave. I'm pretty sure that does cold damage. And well, that kind of taught me a lesson. You don't want to have that happen, especially on hardcore. So yeah, stack those resists, and you see I have barely any damage reduction mods. I have a chest here with 2 mods. I have like 1 on the pants, and this is basically it. I have like some 1 or 2 defensive aspects, but you see here, like armor can be easily capped now on basically any build, even Sorks, I guess you can just cap armor now. I'm standing here with 10,500 without disobedience up, for example, so you can get crazy amounts of armor, so you can cap that to 85%. It shows 100 here, that's just a tooltip bug. You can cap your resistances to 70, and then you basically have like a nice baseline of defense that way. So in case you are struggling to survive, this is most likely the reason. Get your armor up. There's like really high percent armor value rolls, as you can see here. This can go up to like almost 29%, I believe. Disobedience aspect if you need. And then the 70 all res. And like this, you're basically fine against most content. I've already killed Lilith. I've already cleared a T100 Nightmare Dungeon with this. And I've killed Uberduriel. Yeah, these new bosses are generally quite easy, to be fair. Even Duriel is somewhat easy, I would say. So it might be kind of like a very tanky boss, especially Duriel has quite some HP. So if you don't bring a lot of single target damage, it will take a while. But it didn't really feel like a very difficult encounter for me. So I'm going to experiment a bit more with different builds, and we'll see. But realistically, the game has become somewhat easier now, with especially Lilith being way tuned down, which was like the ultimate challenge so far. So if you haven't done Lilith yet, then this is probably the season, because she has just been like really tuned down. You can also find some clips of these encounters on my other recent uploads on my YouTube channel. But other than the resists, I've also changed the item power values, and it also changed certain stats. Crit and Vuln are less important now, for example. I found that at least crit chance can still be quite valuable. Crit damage, not so much, but it depends a bit on the build. So especially in a rogue, there's definitely some synergies with crits, for example. And just critting has some extra effects sometimes, for example. But for the most part, I've been playing the Twisting Blades rogue here, and I didn't really go for any crit. I didn't really go for vulnerable damage. I did have vulnerable effects, but that was about it. And the items that I find are not much more diverse now. So I'm trying to find items or like gather items that have, way different stats. I'm also trying to like starting to gear up for some other builds that I want to play. And gearing has definitely become a lot more interesting. And I felt the gear progression is also way better now, because you started in ancestral items in Torment at level 70 or so, level 65. And then you have like a way lower cap of item power, especially the weapons that you can find at these lower levels, and then it increases slowly as you go. And you're kind of incentivized now to farm higher tier Nightmare Dungeons, for example, once you hit level 100, to try to get the highest level loot. I also noticed that the new bosses drop a lot of really high level loot, and even world bosses. So here's 2 weapons that I both found from the same world boss. So that was kind of interesting. 925, which is the cap of the item power now. So it seems like all these endgame bosses actually drop very high level loot, or you farm like, tier 80, tier 90, tier 100 Nightmare Dungeons later down the line, once you are strong enough to do so. But it definitely gives you a bit more of like an item progression. And I think it's way more exciting now to try to find items where, I can try to get higher resistance values, and then slowly start replacing those resistance affixes that I had in like 4 different spots. And, I'm like overcapped in some cases, for example. And at some point you can optimize it to the point where you can just run like one item with triple res and maybe another 1 or 2 res rolls somewhere else, and then everything else can go back to some other stats. So that's kind of like the gear progression here now, where you can start replacing resistance rolls once you have really high rolls, and then you get other stuff in there. And then, for example, your weapons just get higher and higher item power, and it feels kind of good to replace your items and do a bit of like this puzzle here and there. At least I had quite some fun with that. Also, there was this change where now you don't find sacred items anymore when you're in Torment difficulty. There are still a few sources of sacred items. I believe they can drop from just maybe chests or Nightmare Dungeon completion or so. Occasionally you can find a sacred item, but for the most part, it's all ancestrals. Besides some legendaries, sometimes they drop as sacred as well, just so that you still get, you know, the same number of legendary aspects as before, for example. And that feels really good. So generally, I just pick up everything. And there's also this mark as favorite feature now. There's like this little flag there. So this is also quite helpful in some cases to just organize your loot in a stash, organize your inventory. So sometimes I keep like some items around here. For example, those 3, I just mark them as favorite. And then in some cases, I swap these items when I do different content. So like this, I make sure I don't accidentally salvage them or something like that. So I've been using that feature. That works pretty well. And with just fewer items dropping, you can just kind of like pick up everything. And we also have much more gold income that you don't actually need to sell them to the vendor. You can just like look at your items real quick and then just, you know, go to the blacksmith, salvage all, and that's it. You don't have to like necessarily mark them all one by one if you don't want to. And it's just much better like inventory management now. So I kind of like that. It's still not really great. I guess a lot of people would still prefer to get loot filters, etc. And I'm pretty sure those are coming at some point. But for now, I think it feels better. It feels more smooth to progress. And there's definitely more dynamic now with how you make a character, how you can experiment with stuff, how you look at items basically with different stats. So I kind of like the new system. Also, the gold income is way improved. So here I have 60 million gold and I have not been selling any items to the vendor. So I just basically salvage everything. I have tons of materials here. This means I also don't really run out of like silver ore, for example. That used to be a problem in the past. When you sell too many items, you just don't get silver ore. And so I have 700 already here, so I can upgrade anything I want. And I'm mostly capped by Forgotten Souls that I have to do Helltide for, and Fiend Roses sometimes. But also enchanting, you can do as much more now. If you farm Helltide, you are rewarded with the ability to enchant your items basically. It's not so much the gold that's the problem now, but it's actually those materials. And I think that is a much better solution. So gold is still kind of like a valuable resource, but it's not like you're constantly tight on gold. So that's kind of nice. And that's about it for my first impressions from Season 2. For me, that's a thumbs up. So I'm just gonna keep lasting. I'm gonna make some more builds. So stay tuned for more build guides, for clips, etc. I'm gonna have a lot of uploads coming here. And hope everyone else is also enjoying this season. And with that, good luck, have fun, and I'll see you guys next time.